Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Heartwell dev stream, the live stream series where I continue to develop this adorable Souls-like action RPG with platforming mechanics and branching narrative. And if you find these dev streams interesting or helpful, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and click that bell button to stay notified. Now, the previous dev stream, of course, we were working on different sound effects for different types of floors and materials, and you can even hear it right here. So for example, currently walking on a stone pathway, but I enter this metal room. It suddenly sounds like we're walking on some metal. So we last dev stream we worked on that, making that possible for every tile in this in the what I call the central well here. So one of the floors of the tutorial dungeon. And now we're going to be doing the same thing, but in the lower well, so the dungeon below, the section of the tutorial dungeon below this one. So that's going to be the main thing for tonight. In terms of what I've been working on with Heartwell off stream, very focused on the main menu right now. So I've gotten the main menu to a point where it's displaying all the right statistics for the different save files. I even have it now that different save files can be accessed, which is good. Going to eventually be programming a delete function, so making it so a save file can be deleted, so one can have a fresh save file. I'm very much looking forward to that. Should be, so in all, I feel like development Heartwell is going at a good pace. Now, in terms of what I'll be up to right now, the first thing to do is to search for the sound effects code, which I think is towards the top here, or not towards the top or bottom of the code. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's easy to forget how I'm just looking at the frame now. There's already over 2,000 lines of code. Or just technically over 2,000 events. Now granted, not all these events are active, but still. It's been quite the journey at this point with all the programming. Now might be easier to find it just by searching by sound effects. Aha! Walking sound effects. So this is what I was looking for. Towards the top, line 35. Okay, so we have our sound effects material zones. Yep. Then the resetting of sound effects. All right, I think I'm seeing how this works. There's cursor below the walking animations. So I'm going to really quick open up my notes chat, and then we'll continue with the dev stream. So be right back. Alrighty, chat. Welcome back, everybody. Oh, hey, Copper Nicholson. Thanks for dropping by. How's it going? Welcome, welcome. I was just setting things up with the with my notes, and now we're going to be continuing to programming some walking sound effects. This time in a different frame. So last stream we worked on this central well here. Now we're going to the lower well. That's what I'll be doing. Copper Nicholson, did you read through the Discord server? Because I did post a message about starting a bit later today. All you missed was the intro. There hasn't been that much, Copper Nicholson. Welcome, welcome. So let's start by double checking the code in this frame. So these buttons up here let me swap immediately between the programming lines on different frames. That can be quite helpful at times, as it can make it a little bit faster than flicking between frames, just then you have to jump between multiple menus. Well, Copper Nicholson, then in that case, you have no one to blame but yourself. All right, for being misinformed. All right. So in the meantime, I'll be heading back to some programming. Okay, so I see that these lines of code is like the old lines of code. Yeah, plays the locking sound effects and disables the locking sound effects. So we'll leave the adjustments to the code were to these lines and to the lines up here. So what we'll do is we're going to go over here. It's below line 34. So we take the walking sound effects, copy that code. Basically, I'm going to inactivate the old code. Let's deactivate those lines for the time being as we do some programming and work through it. So, what's new in your world, Copper Nicholson? You have any good week so far? Let's take a look. All right, so I think this line up here needs to be adjusted, line 33. Yep. Okay. All right. Are you making good progress with that IT stuff, Copper Nicholson? Also, read a message as Apollo. Attention all Autobots, our worlds are in danger. To save them and the galaxy, we must find the 4 cyber planets before the Decepticons can use them for evil. It is our mission now to do this. Yes, everyone is going to need you to speak with Copper Nicholson about merchandise. Only by working together can we wage our battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons once for all. Autobots, transform and roll out. All right, so where was I? Yeah. So with programming, I believe what I'm doing right now, chat, is simply basically a line of code check. I'm trying to make sure I'm checking for differences between the line of code, as this fundamental code should be identical. So I'm already noticing one difference here. So this line needs to be copied over. Yeah, line 33 here should be a little bit more involved than that. So that way we're stopping the various types of sound effects, as you can see right here. We got that, delete that. And the line of code below there looks fine. So now we're going to go down and there. Saying D process, you're about to say an today. Alright, well, glad you got some good running in. Oh, I imagine you'll get to what you were working on tomorrow then? Let's take a look here. Okay, so now we got that. Now the areas to find the sound effect zones. So this code right here, chat, is going to be the bulk of what we do tonight, is identifying the zones that need the various types of sound effects. I believe we're also going to need to, we might need to create another walking sound effect for perhaps a dirt material, but we'll get to that later if it's necessary. That defines the sound effects. That's what disables the sound effects. And this is the generic code for saying those things. I wonder if did I actually define alterable value? Yeah, I wonder. Let's find out. Walking sound effects value. Yes, I did. All right. Well, let's make sure that that gets defined then. Let's actually go over here and take a look for the player's hitbox. There it is. Now we're going to define a new alterable value. So I think it's alterable values. Yeah, alterable value 26. Walking sound effects value. So now that way, if we looked in our code, it should line up with what it was in the other frame. So now it says walking sound effects. Was it walking sound effects value? Okay, walking sound effects value. Obviously, in future frames, we'll be able to use this as a base code so that we don't have to double check these things and we can just use it as is. But for now, it's important to keep that moving. Walking sound effects value. Well, yeah, sometimes it can be good to take a step back and reevaluate things. So I wonder what season Fortnite's on at this point anyway. Alright, so I think the main things to do right here are going to be identifying the sound effect zones. So right now we have wood, metal, and default. Default would be mostly stone. I also need one for dirt. So. I see Copper Nicholson. Also, I ask that you please watch your language, Copper Nicholson. And again, this is a very wholesome stream, so I'd encourage you to review the rules if those have slipped your mind. Now, let's. I'd say the first thing to do in that case is going to be start to find the sound effects values for value 1, which is again metal. For that, we actually have this handy dandy tool of ours, which is the level, the tile map editor. It's a very, very, very useful level design tool for mapping out areas. I think the easiest way to do this is going to be to start with perhaps the top, start from where the player might enter and work our way backwards, or work our way forward. So the player enters through the left first section of metal is obviously going to be this room right here. So there's a lot of metal in this room. So yeah, let's start with that. Our best practices. Okay, I don't think we're best practice for that, but I think I got the gist of it. Okie doke. Yeah. Now we get to find the zones. So what I'm doing right now, chat, is I'm placing a zone for a different type of sound effect to play, in this case metal. That's 833. I think we want to be around... Not keeping track of my cursor though. Oh, I see the coordinate moving on the left, so set that around 966. There should be fine. That's 2305. Let's do 2314. Okay. Cool. Weird Al Yankovic. Yep, I've listened to Weird Al Yankovic before. Their songs are very fun. Where we end up if I spawn it? Well, apparently we end up outside the map, which is not where we want to be. That's funny. Well, testing this out might take a little bit more preparation. I just need a way to get back into the map. I think the easiest way to do that. Well, it'll be right here. So, chat, if you're wondering why these are invisible for... I have to make these invisible for the main demo. But for testing purposes, I can move these back. I can make them revisible again. The impassable walls, so that way that the player has some way to actually dip back in. All right, that should allow us to at least get inside this area. Read out such a million. Put down that chainsaw and listen to me. It's time for us to join the fight. It's time to let your babies grow up to be cowboys. It's time to let the bed bugs bite. You better put all your eggs in one basket. You better count your chickens before they hatch. You better sell some wine before it's time. You better find yourself an itch to scratch. Talk with your mouth full. Bite the hand that feeds you. Bite off more than you can chew. What can you do? You can dare her to be dumb. Dare to be dumb. Ooh woo. That sounds like something Milliam would say. For sure. 1000%. Alright, so everyone want to test this here. I think I'll have to move the thing out to the right a bit more, but that's fine. Okay, so it's good that we're not hearing any metal right here. Good. Alright, now we're going to hop up here and take a listen. To make sure that this sounds like metal. Ow. Alright, so right now I'm not hearing anything. Oh, I know why. Because we're not hearing anything right now because the reset value is different. Right. So, chat, when we programmed this, we also had to make sure that there was the anti-programming for the, yeah. So basically, chat, it's important to have an anti-program here to check for it. Because otherwise, it's going to say, oh, well, you're not in that zone, therefore it should be set to 0. Which in this particular case is not what we want. Now we can test things. Let's head on back over here. Same test as before. We'll walk along the outside. Okay, no change. That's good. Oh, there's a change. Might have overdone it there. That's the metal sound effect. Now we'll hop on over here. All right, let's take a listen. Also try not to die here. Okay, so volume down from this. Just need to adjust a little bit to the left here. Let's try that. Okay. I'll take hop on down here. So again, we're trying to make sure this doesn't sound like metal when we walk on the outside here. All right, good, good. So walk all around. Sounds good. Say we're standing here so that way we're not stuck here when the battle starts firing. Now we head over here. Alright, sound pretty good. Okay, so I think we got that little zone tiled in. Now do the same thing but over here. I'd say it's probably my faster just to copy that over and move it around. Over to the 6. By the way, Copper Nicholson, have you ever watched the show Good Omens? I think it's on Amazon. Really, really funny. Let's take a look over here. Okay, so I think we got that lined horizontally. Now we just need to adjust it. I think it sits to the left. There we go. I have to adjust it over the side because of where the action point is relative to the player's hitbox, or collision box, I should say. So the player's collision box is not like a perfectly tiny point. Rather, it's a rectangle. And no matter where I define the point of that rectangle, there's obviously going to be some space between the actual edge of the collision box and the points defined as the action point in that rectangle. Therefore, that's this offset, in this case, x equals 6, I believe will make it so that as long as the player is standing up here, they'll play the sound effect, but if they're down there, they physically can't get in the zone. So this is what we're interested in this particular case. Then we'll hop this over here. I think we increased this one by about 9, so 976, so that'll be 967. There we go. All right, time for the next one. I'll be interested to see, chat, whether or not we end up paying the whether or not we hit the line limit in this event, just because this is a much larger area than the space above, with a lot more potential for different sound effect zones. And only time will tell. Let's head over here. First we align the rectangle. Then we adjust. So horizontally plus and minus 6. Vertically plus 9. In this case, 951. Move that on up. Okay. Next one. Gonna be basically every platform here except like these parts that are stone will be metallic sounding. So that's what we'll focus on. Sorry, that's with this section. And now we move it up 9, so I'll be 839. Very good. Very, very good. Bring this on over here. I'll make some adjustments. Okay, 2304, that means 2310. Bring this up a bit. Cool. Alrighty. We got that. Next one. Gonna be this spot over here. So we keep it at the same vertical height, so 839 as the start of the vertical height. Okay, so 2330. Perfect. Now, yeah, it's the next one. Yeah, so you're probably seeing chat that sometimes the zone outline can glitch out if you're moving the screen around. Clickteam Fusion was meant to build massive levels like this. It can certainly handle it if done correctly, but there's some things that seem like it was much more designed for like you're kind of focused on a singular screen as opposed to using the screen as a big level. But I digress. I still love Fusion 2.5. It's amazing. It's an amazing visual programming software. Really, really, really enjoyed using it all these years. And I like that. I like that Heartwell is really also forcing me to learn a lot more about the software than I already knew. So like pathfinding and all that good stuff. Like I didn't even know the software was capable of pathfinding until I had to learn how to do it. Or I just had to make use of the pathfinding object. And other pathfinding parameters. And we'll zoom that back on up. I might have heard of it before Copper Nicholson, I just don't remember it. Like, some Weird Al Yankovic songs I remember are like Albuquerque and Soon I'm Going to Be a Jedi. So those are some fun ones. Or, of course, I'm pretty sure it was Weird Al Yankovic who sang Amish Paradise as well. I remember that one. It's 823. Okay, and then move over to the right. 2432. Let's make that 2438. All right, very good. That's the next one. Yeah, Amish Paradise is a classic. And that's such as this right over here. As this part over here would be stone. Okay, let's zoom that out a bit. So 2458, 2506. Very good. Zoom that in a bit. Zoom this in over here. Bada bing, bada boom. We got sound effects programming. Let's go. Bada bing, bada boom. Now to the next one. We'll check this. Okay, it's just these portions up here. I'm almost wondering, chat. I'm wondering if it might be possible to control sound effects by setting instance values specific tiles. Granted, that wouldn't work for every situation. Actually, no, I guess that wouldn't work because of collisions between the tiles. I was thinking in my head, like, what's a better way to automate, I guess, the sound effects here? Because in, like, a 3D game, or a game where, like, you're using objects for specific surfaces, you'd be able to just say, give sound effects value to, I guess, table. It has sound effects wood, or here's a metal cabinet. It has sound effects metal. But with what I'm doing here, in order to really make things more efficient and to save on unique instances of active objects, I have to... It's not as easy to just be like, oh, well, this object's made of such and such material, therefore it should sound like blah. I have to actually do some more hand programming like this. Is it possible for a something to become... I would say Copper and Nicholson asked the writers of Ruby. No, seriously, like, they would be the only ones who'd have an answer to that. Because when it comes to the maidens, like, all sense of logic kind of goes out the window, because the whole concept was written at a part where they weren't really at a point in their timeline when they weren't really thinking about the ultra long term ramifications of their story and such. So, but to answer your question, Copper Nicholson, you would have to... again, you'd probably have to ask the writers of Ruby. Okay. So let's see here. Okay, so we move this on over. 2450, what was it? 2496 before? Yeah. Make it 2502 over there. And 458 over there. And 7. Actually, this needs to be all the way up here because there's some metal up there. Okay, that'll do for that one. Okay. All right, let's move this over to a 2470, 2426. It's 93, or I guess it's 63. There. Alright, that'll complete that section. A little bit more to add. So we need over here and over here. And over there. Oh yeah, speaking of writing, Copper Nicholson, how goes writing? Weren't you working on writing either some Dungeons and Dragons characters or some OCs? How's that going? move this over here. If it sounds like it's not a chat, I'm just thinking about the numbers and what they need to be. Alright, I mean, plenty of people find career frightening to be a good form of stress relief, Copper Nicholson, but it's also not for everyone. So if it's not your thing, that's perfectly fine as well. Yeah, I know for me at least, it can be a lot of fun to creatively write for Heartwell, especially because I feel like I'm really bringing some of my ideas to life. There's also the joy of just building, of world building and creating a vast fictional setting with one's own ideas and characters and plot lines. Again, to each their own. I think this one should be pushed down a little bit further. Over sits to the right. And then 9 below. I think 261. Let's read it a little further. There we go. Yo, Director, thanks for dropping by. How's it going? Welcome. Hey, no worries, dude. Glad you can make it. What's new, Director? Yeah, you've been looking forward to a dev stream so you can join spoiler free. You mean there are mild Heartwell spoilers in streams? No, there aren't. I do my very best to keep the stream spoiler free, Director. And keep in mind, I've been doing these dev streams for almost 3 years now. And I've been, I think, pretty decent. Well, I guess maybe not dev streams for 3 years, maybe 2 years. Like, I've been working on Heartwell for almost 3 years now. I've been very good at being tight-lipped about spoilers, okay? So yeah, since Jane Death is playing longer than the game playing, at least the spoilers are slow. That's fair. That's fair. You're good. Had a decently productive day between going to the gym and working and stuff. All right, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Glad you had a productive day. Dorothy is cute. Indeed. Dorothy's adorable. No pun intended. Would be adorable or adorable? I don't know. But yeah, definitely excited to continue development and get to a point where the demo's available. Adore people, yes. All right, so right now we're actually going to test sound effects. So we're literally picking up with last stream where we were doing sound effect design in a the upper floor, now we're on the lower floor. Oh yeah, the ambient music, I forgot to mention. So this is the ambient theme for this tutorial dungeon. Yeah, you like that? It's not intrusive. Thanks, Raptor. Yep, it sets the mood. It's exploring this dark underground dungeon. Alright, so it's got a 90s DOS vibe to it. What's a DOS, Raptor? I mean, if it's like the 90s, I take that as a compliment, because, you know, the art style is very much 90s pixel game. Alright. Alright, I think I got it. Yep. Okay, now the Cabrattles, aka the OS that came before Windows. Oh, okay. Well, alright, oh, I know what I did wrong. I forgot to program these into the other section. Alright, chat, the line to look for is 1695, 1100. There it is. So, it had games like Anarchy, tons of graphic adventures with Maze soundtracks. Okay, that's definitely intentional on Record, because the game, like Heartwell, was definitely designed to look like a 90s RPG. So the art style is very Shining Force-esque or Fire Emblem-esque on purpose to evoke that that era. But at the same time, when you actually get to the gameplay, it's much more Dark Souls 1 meets Crosscode. So, definitely more of a somewhat modern feel with its gameplay and combat, even if it's, you know, it looks like a much older game. Also reminds me of some Windows 95 days, like some dungeon crawlers and stuff that were playing entirely window mode. Alright, I'd agree with that, for sure. For sure. There will be songs that go heavy with the orchestral side, though. Like the main theme of Heartwell, which you'll hear as soon as you boot up the demo for the first time, is definitely more grand, orchestral, celestial kind of feel to it. I'll just leave it at that. So that, I worked very hard on the songs for Heartwell. So when you guys have to listen to it, I'll be interested to hear feedback about them. Not all of them age well, but they're charming for what they're worth. That's fair. Yeah, some games just do not age well. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, the thing is like, you always gonna have a little nostalgia for games you play when you're under, even if they weren't particularly good. So, okay, I got it. So, there was a video game for, I think, Bionicle. I think it was like Bionicle for like the, I don't remember what system it was, but it got ported to PC, and it wasn't the thing about it was, you know, you have a lot of I have some fond memories of the game because I was, you know, young and like, oh, this is fun, it's Bionicle. You know, I have a Bionicle action figure, so now we have a video game. It's cool. It's cool on that front. You know, like the old QOL design and all that. But the thing is, now looking back on it, when I actually look at like the way that game was designed from the ground up, it's terrible. It's like really, really horrible. Like, all the levels are super duper, like, it was supposed to be like a collectathon action platformer, but there are a number of glaring problems with it. The most obvious of which is just the insanely linear level design. Like, other and to keep in mind, I'm comparing it to other games of its era, and that's why I'm being kind of harsh on the criticism. Like, other collectathons of its era that had some action elements to it, like, let's say Donkey Kong 64, for example. They had a lot of, like, the gems and stuff to collect and items, but a big difference there was that they actually had somewhat vast worlds to explore, and then have the little linear sections for, like, specific things you're collecting. Whereas in Bionicle, it's just, like, one line of a level after another. I'm not sure if it was called Mask of Light or not. It was about the Mask of Light movie, but one of the things I despised about was like the linear nature of its platforming levels. And another thing I despised about was the many on what I'll call on rails sections. So like I'd say a good 40 to 50% of the game occurs in like on rails sections where you're either like sledding through snow or surfing on lava or literally stuck on a minecart on literal rails. And those are like, in my opinion, the worst sections of the game, because I feel like it detracts from the how cool it is to play as the Toa that you're trying to play in that particular situation. Like some of the Toa you don't really get to walk around with at all, and you're just stuck in those on rail sections. As a kid, those on rail sections also stunk because the way they were designed was that if you lost, if you didn't succeed in whatever objective they were trying to get you to do, you just lose within the time limit. And sometimes that could actually be kind of challenging. I don't remember, I liked it to challenge, but like this wasn't like a fun kind of challenge. It's more like, oh, do you succeed in fulfilling this requirement while the janky physics works against you? It just wasn't fun. Well, Copper Nicholson, it sounds fun until you actually see it and you're like, this is kind of lame. Dark Horse says, "Girl played some Dark Souls 3 while watching the stream at the same time. You'll lower the sound of the game so you can hear you and make the game window small so you can read chat." Alright, sounds like fun, Record. Are you doing another Dark Souls 3 playthrough? And if so, what's your plan for this playthrough? Area 2348. Got that. You're finally doing a piercing swords only playthrough. Never did one for Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 2. Alright, well that should probably be pretty easy, Record, just because the piercing swords or just any kind of thrusting weapon tends to be meta in Souls games just because they're so quick. Did Sharp stock plus 10, you're going to the ring say after having cleared everything else? Yeah, so like, I mean, especially in Dark Souls 2, especially like in Dark Souls 2, like any kind of thrusting sword would be the meta. Like literally any of them. But even outside of that, they're still very, very, very good just because they're so quick. I mean, if you want some weapons that I consider hidden gems in Dark Souls games, it would tend to be the axes. And that's because they hit close to the power of clubs, but they're generally a little bit faster than clubs and tend to have a slashing attack. So axes can be a lot of fun. As we saw in my Dark Souls 1 challenge run, like that gargoyle axe was like our bread and butter for the majority of the run because it just had good reach and it had good damage and good statter potential, all without really investing too heavily in either of them. It was a good balanced a sort of weapon. Now, what was I looking for? Oh yeah. $7, $8.90. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so that and true, but at the same time, Dreptor, if we want to go with which weapon I specifically avoided using the longest, would definitely be the gargoyle axe. And I'll say, even in like right now, when I'm doing just a regular run of Elden Ring, it's like, okay, if I were to play this game just for fun, what would I actually use? I'll give you guys some chances here, chat. What do you think Antomicx would use on a quote-unquote normal playthrough of Elden Ring? Like, which weapon classes do you think he'd prioritize? And I'll say, don't say a bow, because of course I'll use a bow, but that's not going to... But I'm saying, like, if I had the bow as not, like, the primary weapon, what would Antomicx use? Magic? Alright, that's Copper Nicholson's. Yes, what do you think? Gregor also says sorceries. So I will say this, sorceries is not one of them. So I have blatantly refused to use any sort of staffs. Alright, but, you know, decent guess, decent guess. Miracles? Okay, of course, I do use miracles, I'll give you that, so that's half the build. Oh, I guess a third of the build, so it's obviously always gotta have a bow with it, but, you know, of course we'll use miracles. But what else? What is the last third of the build? Great axes. Great guess, Grekor, not great axes. I have not used the jar cannon, Copper Nicholson, no ballistas. Like, as far as ballistas are, I'm not using them, at least not primarily. So, like I said, you have the bow on one hand, so the bow's part of the build, miracles are part of the build, so some kind of, you know, I think it's called a finger seal or something like that, some kind of thing to cast miracles with, but what's the last part of that? What is the thing Antomicx uses? Hammers. Again, another great brush truck word, it's not hammers. Yeah, I remember, Grekor, there was a time where I was coming into your Elden Ring for co-op purposes, and sometimes we'd have duels, and I remember enjoying using the Knots Flowing Hammer, but no, the hammer's not what's part of the main build. Yeah, got that. Yep, we're talking about Elden Ring, Grekor. We are indeed, so it is Elden Ring. So it's Elden Ring weapons and stuff. Again, you know, the Miracles was part of it. Spirit Ashes, no. I have not used any Spirit Ashes. Like, I mean, especially after I, you know, did the bowling challenge run, to me, Spirit Ashes are more like, sort of like, if I really needed it to, like, beat a boss at, like, an ultra low level, I might use Spirit Ashes, but otherwise I don't really use them. So again, we're thinking about just general weapons now, stuff you can put in your equipment slot. Well, okay, I do use that, Grekor, for PvP stuff. I'm talking, like, let's think core, like, equipment, alright? So not like throwables or anything like that, without staying into, like, the hyper specifics. I'm just talking about the general build. Alright, so obviously I have the bow, I have the thing to cast miracles. Nope, not thrusting swords. I was actually very adamant against using thrusting swords because they are the meta. Same thing with katanas. I have not used katanas. I refuse to use them. Like, I know they're good. I don't care. Like, power stance and great shields. You know, that does sound like something I would do, but no. Like, don't get me wrong. In Elden Ring, that's what you're saying. Random stuff. Okay, daggers. No, definitely not. Like, daggers are very much all or nothing, and you have to go for critical hits, and I don't really parry that much. Whip? Alright, I'll give Copper Nicholson whip's a good guess, but no, not whips. I remember, Grekor, when you and I were playing co-op, there was that one, do you remember that one Vader, Grekor, that was like power stancing whips, and there really wasn't anything we could do because they basically had, they were power stancing bleed whips, and what made it so basically so tricky was that they had all, like, the right boluses to counter status effects. That guy was really good. Like, that guy knew, like, that person knew what they were doing. Like, it's just like, how do you respond to that? Because the whips are so good at building status effects, and you can't really get close. You can't really do anything against that person. It was more so just delay, but no. Spot as effective as whips are, no. Tom sends to a favor agility, is that correct? Are you asking me just because I am Antomicx or just in general? Because do I favor agility? Not really. I'm in general, Grekor, if you've seen what I've done, I'd say the type of player I am is much more akin to what you saw when I fought Artorias. This is more defensive and methodical not like hyper aggressive, rolling all over the place at the speed of sound, going for the insane, just relentless attacks. More so about like positioning and... Yep, exactly. So I will say I am wearing heavy armor and stuff. I'm using it. I'm rocking that Great Jar's Arsenal talisman, so I can carry lots of equipment. Colossal weapons, all right, great deaths, but no, not colossal weapons. That's a little too heavy for my taste. They do enormous damage. They're also incredibly slow, unless you're doing the crouch poke attack. Even with the crouch poke attack. Still not necessarily my thing. Series of Great Shields, I guess? Alright, another great guess. In fact, I do have a PvP character that's based around using like a lance with a great shield. But for my fun build, no. Because I would still argue that spears and great spears still fall into the meta, because they are thrusting weapons that are decently popular. And so, like, someone who knows how to make good use of spears or great spears can really mess you up in Elden Ring, because they're so quick. Alright, you want to hit? Strength or deaths? Yes. I guess technically more in strength, but with some deaths elements. So, if you guys want a hint, I bear in mind that in Dark Souls 1, I favored the gargoyle axe. Now, obviously, we know it's not axes in this game, in Elden Ring. As fun as axes are, it's not axes. But think of weapons that kind of behave like axes. Like, think of the weapon classes that behave sort of like axes. Not that they look like axes, but that they behave in a similar manner to axes. One-time science hammers. Great swords? Nope, not great swords. Another hint, Grettor, since you're curious. The item in particular I'm favoring is one of the classes of items that has very few of them in the game. So basically, think of like classes that have like 5 or fewer weapons within their category. So in that case, hammers and ray hammers, there's so many to choose from. So it's one of the more obscure and niche classes. Oh, I guess not niche, but just definitely more obscure, because there's only a couple of them in the game. So that right there should be a big hint, because there are only a couple weapon classes like that, where it's like, yeah, there's really only like 5 or 4 of them. And I'll say it is a melee weapon, so if you're thinking like, oh, he's talking about crossbows or something, no. Like... Alright, so now we dial this, we have to set these to 0. I imagine Grettor, like, are you and Copper Niddleson just looking on the Elden Ring wiki at this point? Yep, there you go, Grettor, now you got it. Scythes. More specifically, I've started power stancing scythes. They are so much fun. They are really slow, but they are really fun. like, I want you to imagine this, Grettor. I spent enough time grinding to get not 1, but 2 grave scythes, so that I could customize them and make like a really, really versatile sort of build. And like, there's so much you can do with them. Like, now I actually have, I'm using weapons in Elden Ring that actually can be customized with Ashes of War and, do variety. There's so much you can do with that. Like, why can't bows have this? We're doing Sister Free, but with heavy armor. Yes, pretty much. So it's like, I think I'll have to post my Elden Blade at some point, because I like the outfit I've gone for. It's definitely heavier, and the power stancing of the scythe definitely adds to the intimidation factor, because it's not something you usually see. Like, whenever I see invaders with PvP, they're usually either using katanas or some kind of hammer, or a spear of some kind, or a thrusting sword. Scythes, though, fairly uncommon. So when someone sees that I'm using scythes, they're like, what? It's like, what is this? And, to be fair, there's literally only 4 of them in the game. I really hope in the DLC they add some more scythes. They really, because right now there's really only like there's 2 holy scythes in the game, and then there's just 2 regular scythes. We don't really have like a lightning scythe or a fire scythe or a scarlet rot scythe. Like I'd be so down to use a scarlet rot scythe if that was a thing. Like, even if it had like the worst damage ever, just the idea of being able to inflict scarlet rot with a scythe just is so appealing to me. I mean, on that end, for the DLC, I would hope they would make all the different arrow types just something we can just buy, just get, or like the item that's for craftables just buyable, because that gets super annoying. I tried Millennia with that build. Yeah, haven't done that far yet, Grekor, but I'm looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to it. One thing I do like about the power stancing in Reapers, Grekor, is that because of the where the Reapers are situated, sort of like a heavier axe sort of thing, they actually, and the fact that they have innate bleed buildup, it's actually possible to get multiple status effects on them. So when I'm trying to basically min-max against a boss that either has a lot of health or something, sometimes I'll just go straight just dual cold scythes. So that way it's like I have 2 scythes each with 100 frost buildup and 55 or somewhere around there bleed buildup. Frosting, bleed, and frostbite with just the same weapon is so satisfying, and also ridiculously busted against like very, very tanky adversaries. But speaking of testing, right now, chat, we're going to test this room. So then I finally got programmed. We're going to do a nice little walk on the outside here. Yeah. Well, the reason people say bleed is OP is because there are lots of weapons with innate bleed buildup, because it has to do with how tanky a weapon needs to be. Room test in progress, indeed. So right now, first chat, I'm basically walking the edge of all the platforms to make sure it sounds like I'm walking on stone. And so far, so good. Oh, that one needs changed. So this does not sound right, as you can see. This sounds like metal. But otherwise, other subjects seem to be alright so far. Alright. Then I'll but you'll notice, Grekor, if I jump up here, now it sounds like metal. Part of the sound design. Fun little thing. Oh, that needs changed. I think it needs to just be 1 further up. Yeah. I wonder if that's going to be the case with all of them. Yeah. Okay, I think I need to shift all of them just 1 up. Yep. Trying to get the modifier and probably the Demon Prince. Alright, good luck with that, Prepper. Yeah. I might want to pull this one in. Or pull that one out. Oh, there's some adjustments that you made there. Yeah, so basically all these need pulled up by 1. So far, everything else seems to line up. Okay, I miss time that throw. If you're wondering why I'm actually defeating the enemies for once, chat, it's so that I can actually do testing. Since right now Dorothy is very squishy, and we have to be cautious about that. Even though Dorothy's level 42 now, has been doing a lot of testing against the bosses. I've been testing literally everything into like full damage, which means I'm still very, very squishy. Which means I do ludicrous amounts of damage. At the power of stat investment. Yeah, that needs adjusted. Okay. All right, let's make some adjustments. So pretty much most of these are going to need to be moved up one or so. Very, very good. Move Okay, let's move this one in. Do that one up one. The angel by the demon prince. I'm trying to remember which angel is that. Is there an angel by the demon prince? Oh, you're in the DLC. Right. I was confused. I'm like, I think I was thinking of like the old Demon King or something. That's where my confusion was lying. Like, I'm thinking of that underground area in Dark Souls 3. I'm like, I don't remember there being an angel down there. So I misremembered. It's the DLC. Alrighty. Yeah. All in all, I think that development off stream has been going well. I've been working very, very specifically on the main menu right now. So I've actually gotten it to a point where now all the stats for all the save files display properly, and you can actually use the save files now. So that's good to see. I do, however, need to what was I going to say? I do, however, need to program the delete function, which might be a little more complicated. So the thing is, Fusion 2.5 does have a clear array function, a clear array programming thing, but that clears an entire array. And what makes that tricky is for Heartwell, we can't exactly clear the whole array because there's some stats that actually do need to be written in there. So trying to find a way to tailor that's going to be interesting. Well, plus side, at least development continues to move forward. And that's what matters. Alrighty. I think one of these was a little bit too far out. Maybe it was on this. Was on that left side there. I think it was. Okie doke. Finally got to it. Revenge, yes. Good job, Repcore. Glad you were able to reach it. It's a bonfire. Hooray! Hooray for bonfire. Oh yeah, speaking of games, Repcore, have you done anything recently with your game? Any programming stuffs or pixel art or music making? Working on little map screens. All right, that's good. So that would be like if you pull up your pause menu screen, having a little like map of the area. Are you trying to like automate it to some extent, or just gonna hand draw each of them? So I think in Crosscode they actually did automate to some extent how the maps were portrayed. Figure out ways to generalize your code as much as possible so you can do less programming in the long run. That makes sense. Not gonna be modular, they'll be modular. Alright, modular is still better than nothing. As in just assemble the map from tiles. Alright, that makes sense. Good to have modular programming. I like modular programming. That was fine. That one's fine. I think the ones down here are probably fine. So now we have to copy this all over again, which is a process unto itself. The length I like to go to for sound design. It'll be worth it though. It adds so much to immersion. Based on else, we'll continue drawings representing the process from. Ah, I see. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So maybe you have like the generic like map tiles, and then you have actual like unique things that'd be like, all right, this is an icon for a music room, or this is an icon for a town square. Made sense to me. Yeah. To me, there can also be a satisfaction in having a game that doesn't have a map and having the player like have to either map it out themselves or think about how it all connects together. That was one of the things I liked about Dark Souls 1 is the level design was such that you would, by the way the game was designed, you would basically just learn where things are and start mapping things out, maybe with pencil and paper if you had to. I always found that kind of fun. Reno such as hacked. A routine patrol with 4 bots in stasis. Here's Lair, a look to the strangest of places. Earth was their home now, and in addition, Optimus Prime gave them this mission. Learn from the humans, serve and protect. Live in their world, earn their respect. A family of heroes will be your allies. 2 others remain, robots in disguise. Rescue bots, roll to the rescue. With Toa to guide them and show them the way, rescue bots will be saving the day. Humans in need, heroes indeed. Rescue bots, roll to the rescue! Yay! $8.94. $8.81. $8.92. Had $8.92 previously, so now $9.30. Right now, chat, I'm just focusing on getting these all copied back over, so we have the values we need. $9.30. $1,007. Sit down all over here. 1,068. Bada bang, bada boom. 1,022. Bada bang, bada boom. Alrighty. Now we set these all to 0 and then we test it out. Alright, so for those who are watching tonight, I'm going to... This might be a bit of an odd question, but I'm curious. We've had... Let's see how many challenge runs we've had at this point. I think we've had like 6 or 7 challenge runs on the channel so far. So I'd say, based off of what you guys have seen so far, what was like your favorite challenge run to watch that I've done so far? I know not every one of them has a high quality challenge run summary video yet, but just like the series itself. Which one did you enjoy the most and why? Because reminiscing, I'm realizing that, you know, we've done a decent variety of games over the years here. We did, you know, we've done some Souls-like action RPGs. We've done some more strategy RPGs like Trails of Cold Steels. And we've done platformers like Sonic and A Hat in Time. So definitely some decent variety there in terms of what the runs are. Like I also like how like both of the platforming runs were about avoiding collecting things, whereas the Souls-like runs are more about limiting ourselves in some capacity. And the Trails runs all follow the same rule set. Alrighty, let's test out that run. Over. Okay. Do a little outline walk. Alright, sounds good so far. A little walk on the outside. Okay, so let me pull this one in. Which game do you think you should focus more on? Overwatch, Fortnite, or Valorant? My answer is Dark Souls 1. I'm not really invested in any of those games, so I can't really comment on that. I'd say it would ultimately depend on what your goal is. Kaepernick, if you're just playing casually, then just I'd say whichever game you feel is the most rewarding casually. But if you're looking for competitive, then I'd say that also depends on what kind of competitive you're interested in. Because they're all so those games behave a bit differently from each other. Yeah, one thing I do know about games like that, though, is that if you play, you know, they can get frustrating at times just with between lag and still-based matchmaking and all that, depending on what the game is. Okay, so I think that one works good. Okay, welcome back, Rookor. Favorite challenge ones crossroads for sure. Alright. How come Rookor? Just because you were more knowledgeable of the game, or is there more to it than that? Just because it's like the first one, so it holds like your memories, or... The Cold Steel runs were fun mostly for the game's story and one or two really cool strats you learned. Fair. Fair. Yeah, I've been blown away by the Trails stories. They've been really, really good. That time one frustrated you a bit because there were too many mandatory ones. Yeah, I could get that. There were so many, like, so many of the pawns were mandatory to the point where it's like levels just got eliminated. Even by themselves, they'd be fine just because it's like, hey, spend 100 pawns to enter this level. This one was fun, but we were forced to farm. Not that much. Crossroad one was epic. So you feel like the Crossroad one just by its design was the full package. It had everything. It had the strats. It had the moments. That's great stuff you pull for limited CP was epic. True. And to be fair, you know, there's only so much we can really control with like how the game's designed and things like that. But it's just like you're saying, all the stars aligned, like all the stuff where they were making an epic run. All right, I can see that. Oh yeah, the wave decoy and shield and guard sphere. Yeah, those are good points. Those were some epic moments. That's not to say the other runs didn't have their moments like that. Like I still remember to this day, like a Hat in Time, the. Rookor, do you remember when in the Hat in Time challenge run where we were trying to get into, I think it was like the Pink Paw manhole level, and we were trying to avoid getting the pink pass for 10 pawns. But the checkpoint system was working against us because it wouldn't let us go backwards through the Pink Paw station. Until we stood on a curved edge and slowly just started lowering ourselves. It was like the funniest thing. It's like literally the answer was to do nothing. And we literally just smud danced for 5 minutes until we hit the bottom of that very, very tall section. Like, to me, like, that was epic, okay? Especially since I don't think anyone had ever seen that before. And it's like, it has no, one of the glitch hunters actually found out how to replicate it. I mean, it's not hard to understand how to replicate that. All you need is like a really slanted surface to stand on. But the thing is, it's really not practical for any speedrun at all. It's just way too slow. But I still find it hilariously entertaining that that what worked in that situation was literally doing nothing. It's like by doing nothing, we actually found a solution. Yeah, and the other thing is, Rookor, is I've started working on the challenge run summary video for A Hat in Time. Having to rewatch all the levels, I made me realize, like, there was some pretty crazy stuff we had to do to avoid some pawns in that game. Maybe minimum inputs or something like that. Maybe that might be a bit of a stretch, though, since for an area for it to be relevant, you have to be at a higher elevation, not a lower elevation. And most of the time, you're either trying to stay at an elevation or go upwards, not downward. It's not one Frontiers well, I wanted to do this. How come? Because there were just so many rings we had to collect. I mean, to be fair, I feel like every ring we avoided felt earned. Basically, I had to avoid having fun or to do most challenges. I could see that, but at the same time, I feel like that gave me... I always like to look at it as a glass half full, and I think because I spent so much time in the cyberspace levels, like way more than almost any other run would have me do, because I really got to understand how the levels were designed a lot more and how the routes were connected. And I did make a greater appreciation for, man, we haven't had a good 3D Sonic game in so long. Like, seriously, like, think of it this way: the cyberspace levels by themselves would have been a Sonic game. Like, they would have put, like, you know, 30 cyberspace levels together, you know, maybe add a few bosses, call it a day. But we got that as, like, you know, just like you would think of those as like the special stages to work towards staying in the Chaos Emeralds, and the actual, and you have on top of that the actual open zones, which are really fun. And then, you know, the bosses, like having like the mini bosses is all throughout the open zone, coupled with the Titan boss battles just being so amazing and over the top. Like that, so I really appreciated you heard the horror stories about the pinball fame, but it wasn't really as bad as you thought. Yeah, I heard the, like, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh no, this is gonna be horrible. And I was thankful that the rings were fake, and I'm like, thank goodness the rings were fake. Okay, so far it seems the only thing we have to add is this thing right here, and then everything should be fine. So let's see if I can find it. But yeah, it's like, even though like even though it stinks that like that one island where we're climbing the towers, there were just so many unavoidable rains. At the same time, whenever we did do like some kind of janky maneuver to avoid rains, it just felt so satisfying. Especially like in the open world, where like those moments where I like after like 20 or 30 minutes of practice, finally getting like the one perfect janky launch over a bottomless pit to just barely get back onto a rail. Like those to me are like super satisfying to pull off. Yeah, 3D and 2D sections, those were, yeah, now you bring that up, I thinking like I think it was the 3D and 2D to avoid collecting rains on the Chaos Island to get the white Chaos Emerald. Like, you remember that giant floating section that was all in 2D and there were just so many rains that we couldn't avoid? I'm like, is there any way we could break this to avoid it? And how we basically fell out of the map, well, basically fell out of the section so that we would get into 3D to boost over to another climbing wall on like the opposite side of what would have been the end of the 2D section. So it's like we started at like the beginning of the 2D section, purposely fell out of the map, so to speak, and then boosted ourselves at just the right time to yeet ourselves onto a climbing wall so that we'd be in 3D at the end of the section. That was really cool. Like, really cool. Also really hard to control. Or like when we were climbing that one tower, and like I was doing 3D and 2D to try and like land on like the side of a 2D section. And it's like, it was so hard to do because the camera did not want to cooperate at all, because it was getting so confused. So it's like you see Sonic off in the distance and you're trying to maneuver him on like a tiny platform. We ever had the clutch jumps to hit the checkpoints. Yeah, those are satisfying too. Very satisfying. Or just like the maneuvers with like the loops, like understand, having to learn how the loops work and then trying to position Sonic in such a way to activate the loop trigger and then drop down through the loop. Like, I think towards the end there was that one area where it was like that giant loop with like the big linear section, and skipping that one was hard, but it was really satisfying to finally pull off because we were basically trying to finagle ourselves between two death barriers. Yeah, the rails were nightmares. Like, anytime there's a rail section, it's like, oh no, here we go. The speed of sound balance beam of doom. That's how I describe most of the rail sections. Especially out in the open zones where it's like there wasn't really much to do. Good job, here's 9 million rings. And I was like, no. Like, at the same time, they were using the rings as indicators, which is good game design, but as a challenge runner, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. Like, ah, boy. I think it was like that rail section. I feel like Chaos Island had like the worst rail sections. Like, basically the island that had all the volcanoes, Chaos Island, had by far the worst rail sections, because so many of them were in 2D. It also had that like that one mini game where we had to break all those boxes in a time limit, and the thing was, is like, I don't even think that section had rains, or if it did, not few and far between, but that was just a hard mini game. The timer was very unforgiving in that mini game. Oh well. It was fun though. Oh, whoops, I accidentally hit the sorry. I was typing on the numpad without I was typing on the numpad without thinking. I usually use the numpad for programming, but I realized, wait, I'm streaming. I can't do that, or else I'll accidentally hit one of my title cards. So when programming, I typically use the when I'm programming, I typically use the numpad just because that's what I'm used to. But unfortunately, when I'm doing a a dev stream like this, that I tie most of my like my different cards, like the be right back card, for example, to various keys on my numpad, because in general, I find that most video games don't use the numpad, and it's convenient for me because it's right next to the mouse. There we go. All right, chat. We officially sound mapped this run. You might say, Antomicx, that took over an hour. How did it take so long? Look at this run! There's so many little spots where we have to program things carefully. I mean, for perspective, chat, there are more programmed metal sections in this one room than there were in the entire floor above. Just for metal. Granted, there's a lot more wooden sections in the floor above, but still, like, this one room is complicated to program all the sound effects. But that's fine, right? Like, here we have stone, here we have metal. Stone, metal, stone, metal. Anyway. So I think this will actually be a good spot to take our first break. So don't go anywhere, guys. I will be right back. All right, chat. Welcome back, everybody. And since we were talking about the various streams, I will say this, Raptor. I know you're not watching the Trails from Zero stream to avoid spoilers, but I'll say this. I've already had to use a lot of strats in Trails from Zero. Just because I know there's no chrono burst we can rely on anymore. And even the last stream, like, just the last, the boss, the quote-unquote boss fight for Chapter 1 was... blew through a lot of my consumable items, let's just say that. It was pain. So much pain, but also so satisfying to overcome. Like, I remember Spudkip was, had to step out for a bit to do something while I was during that boss battle. Then they came back later and like, is this still the first attempt? I'm like, yes, it's still the first attempt. It took that long. Oh, it was satisfying to overcome, though. Alright, where's the Nets Metal section? So we went through that. So I think the Nets Metal section would actually be right here. Not too much, just a little bit. In this corner here. Although, I'm looking at over here, chat. There are metal pipes on the floor here. Do I dare program over here? I think I might. Because of my attention to detail. Anywho. The demon brothers. Yeah, that's it's a hard fight. Definitely satisfying to overcome, though. Yeah, I think it's just because, you know, it starts as a duo fight, then becomes a third phase. That can make it very tricky. Though being rewarded with access to the Ring City afterwards definitely makes it worth it. Because there's so much to do in the Ring City. All right. I'm thanking chat because I want to show some attention to detail here. I'm actually going to make these metal pipes have the sounds as well. So we'll work through that. Are you thinking about the step sounds and stuff? Well, I was thinking like these metal pipes should have the sound effects as well, just to add to it. Isn't there a way to automate the step region so that you don't have to do them manually for every tile? Not really, Gretgora, and the reason why is because it'd be one thing, Gretgora, if everything was like tied to an object, then I'd be like, oh, this object has this material at the end, but that's not how it's programmed. So everything you see here, Gretgora, is just one big let me back out for a second. So let's take here, for example. This is just all one big backdrop image. It's not like an object. And you might say, why do you do it that way? I do it that way because if I didn't do that way, that would be making a lot of using a lot of objects, which would, you know, perhaps cause some performance issues on lower powered computers. Whereas using a backdrop object like this is way, way, way less intensive. And also frees up space for actual objects that need to, you know, interact with things. So unfortunately, given how large, like, it'd also be different, like, if levels weren't like this massive, you know, I might be able to get away with something like that, but because they're this massive, I do need to optimize things so as not to... I try my best, Repcore. Like, even when I was doing testing, I will say this. On lower end computers, there are some decent load times. Like, there's a decent amount of loading times between switching areas on lower end computers. That's something I did notice when I was doing some testing. But it's not like, but when you're actually playing the game, it's not like that laggy or anything like that. So that means that even though the actual act of loading the stuff does take time, when you're actually playing it, it does feel... It does seem to at least feel reasonably good, which is good, and that's due in part to me doing stuff like this. So basically, if you have a low-end computer, as long as you're willing to live with the load times between switching between frames, you can still get away with playing it. But if you've got like either some kind of solid-state drive or a more medium to high-end computer, you probably won't notice it at all. It was just when I was testing things on my laptop, which doesn't have the greatest stats in the world, it was like, yeah, I can definitely notice the load times. But anyway, back to what I was doing. Programming. So yeah, that's why I have to do it by region like this, is because I can't tie it to a specific object without, you know, actually making the object and just pushing things more beyond their limits. So if you haven't noticed already with like my comments in the Discord server, back to being up the demons. Good luck with that, Breadport. Yeah, but like for those who are on my Discord server and you've seen me like post the memes in the Heartwell Discord channels, you know that I tend to... Everything I've been doing here is really pushing the limits of what the software is capable of, which I'm fine with. I like that I have to get very creative with this and really make the... Yep, no problem, Breckler. I understand that. Best wishes with the boss battle. But like, I like being able to have to learn how to like push the software to its limits, because it shows like shows like a level of how much I've learned over time with using this software. Because I mean, I've been using this the previous iterations of the software since I was in like late middle school. I think late middle school was when I first used like the Games Factory 2 demo. So going from that to when I was just like following the Choco Break tutorial, or like every other, you know, Fusion 2.5 developer, to actually being able to competently do some amount of pathfinding in this and like save file arrays and basically programming a Souls-like action RPG. It's been a journey, a really satisfying one though. Quite the journey. And now also definitely gives me a greater appreciation for developers back in like the 1990s. So now, Brad, what I'm doing here is still definitely easier than what must have been done in the 1990s. Because there's... I mean, I can think of so many examples. Like with Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, though, one of my favorite games. Anthony and the Virus was made in Fusion 2.5. Right. Yep. It most certainly was. It was made in Multimedia Fusion 2, actually, which again, previous iteration of this software. Like that one, especially the Pirate Girl. Hey, I'm glad you liked it. So, but you can see like that's showing my progression as a developer, because I made that game in my senior year of high school. And you can see like, there was definitely some stuff I had to learn to make that possible. Though Anthony and the Virus was nowhere near as complicated as Heartwell. Like, not even close. Like, I made Anthony and the Virus in like 9 months. Whereas Heartwell, like, this, just getting a demo has been taking like about 3 years. I'll getting to a point where the demo was over. It's not like, that's been taking like 3 years. So, it's been a process. Okie doke. For one, platform is pretty much native to Fusion, right? You know, it's a code rather than like, kind of. So in Anthony the Virus, I could just use some of the default stuff for platforming with some adjustments to make that work. But with the actual platforming of some of the levels, especially like the tower crane boss battle, that one actually did have to hard code some of the platforms and do some moving of objects so that they didn't despawn or make it better use of the software. With Heartwell, though, I basically had to do what many other Fusion 2.5 developers do with fast loops to hard code in one's own physics rather than using the defaults with Fusion. For example, I'll just pull this open. So even Dorothy just walking here, like Fusion 2.5 does have an 8-direction movements software that's decent, but it tends to get stuck on corners and things like that, especially if we want like nice smooth things like this where I can walk against a wall and not have any problems. Like if I tried to use the default 8-direction movements, like it would do the function of like making me stop against the wall, but if I were to like hold upright like this, I would just drag against the wall really slowly because of the friction. Whereas with fast loops like this, it feels much more natural, like an old game would. Like right now, I'm holding the right button, so I'm constantly moving right, but I can move smoothly back and forth without much problem. But with Fusion 2.5's default systems, it has trouble with that, and you just kind of get, you get like stuck on things or moving very closely. It makes you feel like you're moving on molasses. So as a result, same thing with jumping. This is not any native Fusion 2.5 thing. This is all hard-coded, custom-coded. Whereas in Anthony the Virus, jumping was, I think, part of one of the native platforming things. So that's an example of where it depends on what the function of the game is and how important that is. Like in Anthony the Virus, if one actually does like jump at weird angles on walls, you'll see how like the weird collision jank of the default platforming code for Fusion 2.5 affects it. Whereas you won't really notice as much with Heartwell, because it has to be custom coded with the fast loops. For, as they say, that pixel perfect platforming or maneuvering. Does that answer your question, Duckcourt? You still wish there would have been like a good ending or a bad ending? Hey, I can appreciate wanting multiple endings. Heartwell will most certainly have multiple endings, but when I was developing that game at the time, that was not that would have been well beyond the scope of what I was making at the time, Copper Nicholson. But Heartwell will most certainly have multiple endings. Definitely going what I'll call the Fallout New Vegas route of story design. At least for the main story structure. Like there's clearly a core narrative, but like how that core narrative plays out is up to how the player decides to do things at certain points in the game. Any recommendations for how I get the bad ending in Heartwell? I'd say just play, play the game. Play the game a lot, see what options there are. I'm not going to say anything beyond that because I'm not giving you guys any major spoilers. I wouldn't do that. I want you guys to be able to experience it relatively blind. Yeah, obviously there's only going to be so much that can be shown off in the demo. But for what's worth, for a first playthrough, the demo should probably take a decent amount of time to complete. Though granted, someone who knows what they're doing could probably beat the demo in a couple of minutes. But for anyone who's playing for the first time, or perhaps not like some S tier like speedrunner or something like that, it'll probably take them a bit longer. But that's all right. All right. Something that's been interesting with developing Heartwell's story, though, this time's back to object scope, is when I first started making Heartwell's story, I thought, oh yeah, I don't have so many different decisions, and it'll be Undertale-ish, and it's like, you'll choose all these other things, moral decisions. But as I started writing the character, I realized, like, that doesn't really fit Dorothy's character. like in like a game like Undertale, Frist is very much a blank slate, and it's up to the players to kind of define them. But in Heartwell, I don't have a blank slate character. I have a main character. And Dorothy, she has her own biases, she has her own opinions. And because of that, when I'm making all these choices, I have to approach it from the sense not of, okay, what would be a cool decision for a player to make here? And more so like, what would be a decision that Dorothy would actually consider making in this particular situation? And that's led to some very different sort of thinking about how decisions are allowed or thought of. Because one critique I see a lot in some of the Telltale games or games like Mass Effect and stuff, it's like, man, I really feel like we should have been able to do X, Y, or Z in this particular situation. Because that's what I might have wanted to do as a player, thinking in that situation. But the counterpoint to that is, one, object scope. There's only so much a developer can do before a scope gets out of hand. And the other thing is, if you're playing as like a character and not just something that the player creates, then it has to be in line, I think, with how the character would behave in that circumstance, or what might be running through their head in that circumstance. So that definitely did shape how I programmed some of the various decisions throughout the game, or planning for those decisions at this point. But it's got me excited, though. Very, very excited. Start there, move up 10. Try around there. All right. Yo, Jakey Needle, thanks for dropping by. How's it going? What's that? Is that the website you've been working on, JD Needle? Right now, we're programming sound effect sounds. Oh, cool. Congrats on finishing the feature, so JD Deedle. Let's see, 1057, 1047. Let's go around there. Boop. So, yeah. So it's take a bit of time, but it is worth it because it makes the sound effects sound different in different zones to make everything a bit more immersive. That'll do. Alright. Just doing some polishing and some lessons, then you'll be pitching your pilot. That's awesome, JD Illegal. I'm glad to hear you're making good progress with that. Yeah, tonight's definitely been a process. I feel like we're getting there. We're about to test another rum. $10.05, $10.15, $11.83. I say the numbers out loud to remind myself which to use. $11.88. Run. We're about to run a another test of a different room. It's for sound effects. So like having different materials make different footstep audio, for example. So like walking on metal versus walking on stone. 1188. 1182. Then 1142. $10.47 and $9.82. I'm also beginning to realize I might want to delete some of the stuff below this just because it's it might overlap and that's not good. So what this check right here does, chat, is it basically checks to make sure that if we're not in any of the zones we defined up here, it'll reset the walking effect, sound effect walking value set to the default, which is basically stone or generic surface sound effect. Cool. Yeah, I find presenting in front of a class to be very, very challenging, but also very satisfying because it shows like a different level of mastery. Like having to truly explain, like it's one thing to be able to understand something enough to do it oneself. It's quite another to be able to understand something enough to be able to teach someone else to do it or to understand it. All right, chat, let's test it out. And for this room, I probably will have to defeat some enemies just because it is one of the more difficult rooms in the game. So chat, we're going to test the sound effects in this room. The room filled with all the rattlesnats and the vibrato. This room is evil. But it also rewards shinies. If I haven't collected it by accident already. There should be a shiny up there that I am not currently seeing. I might have accidentally collected it. So... Alright, so time to run through this area. Not too bad. Okay. Nope. Okay, just need to clear out this area. Oh, I see. Alright, well, it's still important. Okay, so clearing. That's cool. Look at this, chat. Look at this. Metal. Not metal. Metal. Not metal. Metal. Satisfying. Okay, let's clear out this area. Fortunately for me, I happen to have really, I basically level up a bunch. I'm on level 42 right now, so that's all in on damage because I was doing a lot of testing with the bosses. So that should hopefully make clearing out this area a bit. Oh, whoops. I probably should have defeated that thing there. Oh well. Here we go. alright, we'll get there eventually. Oh yeah, I did collect that thing. That's why I was at that night, because I already collected it. There we go. Let's try this again. Alright, we'll be more cautious this time. This room is definitely bigger. So the idea of this room is obviously to have the corrals use the rattlesnakes as cover, but now we have really strong weapons. And stats, we can just do that. Now it's just a rattlesnake room. I was supposed to do is actually have decided to teach you financial literacy and banking skills. Oh, cool. Nice. Well, those are very important skills to learn, especially here in high school. Like, I honestly wish there was a bit, like, we had more opportunities to learn about personal finance in at least the high school I went to definitely didn't teach as much unless you're in very specific classes. Damn, I want to adjust that. That needs adjustment. Still, I like being able to walk over the pipes, hear this. That sounds a little bit different. Might want to move it out a bit. Yeah, definitely need to wind that a bit. Well, we'll clear out this area. Very, very slowly. Those who are wondering why my tomahawks are doing more damage than the axe, it's because I've spent a lot into dexterity. We'll just casually clear out this room full of rattlesnakes. So the most efficient way to play Heartwell anyway is to make good use of both the melee and the ranged weapons. So you're noticing, chat, I'm kind of intermixing when I'm using my melee and ranged weapons, so that way I have the least amount of downtime. That's going to be an important skill for the players to master, is making, basically trying to make complementary use of both your melee and ranged weapons. As relying too much on one or the other will definitely not be as optimal. Because right now, you know, I can use melee for moments right here where my ammo's recovering. Now the ammo's recovered. Boop. And that makes us clear this area a lot more efficiently. Alright. No! No! It took so long! No! I got too greedy. No! Even a simple rattlesnake can absolutely destroy us. We have to be careful. I was doing this for testing. Come on. Alright, well, here we go again. Out here. Alright, that was not smart. I should have waited. Alright, what we'll do is we'll bait an attack. There we go. Okay. The thing about rattles is, you know, once they fire their projectile, they can't lock onto you, so if you just kind of zigzag back and forth, it's not too bad. Then we can do things. I don't know how it doesn't see me right now, but it's just kind of giving up. It's like, this doesn't seem to be working. Okay. It was waiting. I've never seen that happen before. Might as well use these while we have them, just to be safe. Got it. Okay. We're alright. Alright, now let's just clear this area out. Very, very carefully. Careful, careful, careful. Alright, only a few more rattlesnakes left. So, boop. Or not. Whoops. Nope. There we go. Alright, only a few left. Okay, just 2 left. Alrighty. With that, now we can finally just explore this run. So we already know we need to widen the pipes. Just a smidge. Why don't we test up here? There we go. Nice and metallic sound. Perfect. Well, almost perfect. I think that's close enough. Understand. What do you think, chat? Should this sound metallic up here? I think probably. Just a bit. We are technically walking on a metal pipe here. Down here can be wooden sounding. Alright. Well, let's make our adjustments. Move on over there. I'm winding these areas so that it allows us to walk on the pipes a bit more. Still get the sound effect. Yeah, here especially needs to be widened. Right. Finally up here. Look at the map editor, it seems that's around there. It's around halfway to the tile. So wherever around there is, then we add 10. So 32. Yeah. What does it do for?
There it is. Okay. 1183. $11.88. $11.82. All right, we got those areas. Let's test them out. Something else I've been considering in chat, at least for Heartwell, is whether or not to give the dashing iframes. As on the one hand, I think it might take a bit to program to get that to work correctly. But on the other hand, I feel like it'd be nice to give dashing some kind of benefit, even if it's... Because at the way the game's currently balanced, it feels like sprinting's more effective than dashing, at least in some instances. So I'm wondering if maybe giving dashing some iframes would be a good way to balance it out. Just like how jumping sort of gives plenty of iframes. That's like a big commitment. I don't know. Something I definitely have to think about. I'll be looking for some feedback from the demo about that, most likely. When that time comes. Alright, let's test this out. Alright, that sounds metallic. Good. Perfect. I really like the very edge of it, so I think that makes sense. It doesn't give a metallic sound, whereas this is a metallic sound. That doesn't. That does. Makes sense. Alright. Yeah. I might notice that that's about. Let's see how satisfying this script. I mean, look at this. We walk over here. We jump down there. Nice, right? Nice and just surprisingly satisfying. Makes this room feel like it has metal parts in it. Now, speaking of which, let's test out this area here. This is a bit more interesting because of how there's a metal pipe on this wooden section. So, programming intensifies. Yep, so here, you see it sounds nice and normal. Then move over here, metallic. Might want to move it slightly to the right. I want to make it look like if Dorothy's actually walking on the metal, it sounds natural. Then maybe 1 or 2 pixels to the right. And maybe 1 or 2 pixels upward. I don't know. We'll try that one, chat. Let's try it on Apple. Yeah, it's definitely feeling like programming the sound effect, like the sound design in this lower level is going to take multiple streams. Just because you all know that this area is massive, but I think we can work on that across multiple streams. Okay, that made sense. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Seems like we're kind of walking along the edge of it. There we go. All right, chat. What do you think? Think we got the pipe noises here all worked out? We still have to add the wood sound effect, of course, but we'll get to that probably much later on, different stream day. Yeah, chat. All right, sounds good. Just did that effect of walking on the pipe versus the wood. All right, next area. I definitely know I need a dirt sound effect for areas like this that have a lot of dirt. That'll be something else to do. In the meantime, we'll skip over that for now. We're looking for metal. I see our next bits of metal are over here. Just should be just 2 simple sections. Then after that, the next bit of metal. I feel like, what would that sound like? Walking on like some kind of pad definitely sounds a bit different than stone. Maybe a bit more muffled. Probably. Or we could go with the wood sound effect, as that might make sense. Alright. Let's get back to it, chat. Okie doke. That's programming. So for those who are on the Discord server and wondering like how did Antomicx hit the event limit, basically by doing stuff like this, except it was with I was testing. What was I testing? I was trying to program different dialogue jingles for dialogue, and because there's hundreds of lines of dialogue, and there might be alternating between different characters, like which jingle is playing, that ended up really beefing up a single event really quickly and getting close to the limit, or actually exceeding the limit sometimes, and then I had to make adjustments. The solution is just to add another event. And we made that work. Where is this rectangle? Where is it? It's hiding, Chad. It's hiding. Oh, there it is. Found it. It was hiding, but we found it. There we go. Are you alright, Copper Nicholson? Okay, I'll add 6 to that. What was that number? 2016, so we'll add 6 to 2022. What's up, Record? We basically spent tonight's stream making sure the metal pipes are secretly not made of wood. We did. I mean, we've been programming multiple rooms tonight's stream, but just because of the way the level's designed, it's made programming the sound, the background sound effects a bit, more complicated. Like for rooms with just a lot of rectangles, it's much easier, but where it's lets it be like winding paths, it definitely takes a bit longer. I feel like I'm starting to get back into the groove of it. So there is definitely a groove to making this all work efficiently. Yeah. You don't mean a bad way, just a 5 SRA. Fair. Perfectly fair. Yeah, tonight's stream, making sure the metal pipes sound like metal and not anything else. Indeed. That's just like you step on metal and it just there's like a little like toy squeak noise. That'd be hilarious. Just like or it just sounds like Celine, just like that's a nuts thing too. Lots. We want proper sound effects. Making sure they're not just logs painted silver. I mean, to be fair, the default sound effect is meant primarily for stone. Like, there actually is a wood sound effect. Like, if I were to go back to the central well for funsies. So, wood. Let's see if I find a good spot for this. Like up here. You know, this is wood. So, electrical rods made of cylinder. Fair enough. I think I get what you're saying. Oh, this is the wood sound effect. Anyway. Back to what we do. All right, that's all in the right spots. Let's test this spot. Those are wondering why that corral keeps attacking on start. It's probably because it's taking more time for the actual barriers around the map to spawn than it does for the corral to spawn and start sending stand projectiles our way. All right. About to say corrals. Heavy pacifists. Not sure why it's not attacking right now. Maybe because we're staying still. If I don't move, maybe it won't notice me. There it goes. It's like those moments in Dark Souls where like the enemy just stares at you and you're like, what? Okay. Now for testing purposes. Alright, exterior sounds good. Let's try up here. Oh, I'm dumb. I forgot to copy over the thingies. That's alright, we'll get there. That ought to do it. Actually, Greg Course, since you brought up sound design, do you have any plans for how you're going to program sound design in your game? Like, is there any like efficiencies you can do with the software you're using? Wait, was that metal for a second? Did I mishear that? Hold on. 1 second. Okay, I misheard it. There we go. Just basic sound effects, no stepping sound effects or anything. Alright. I mean, while it's not 100% necessary, it definitely, I feel like it adds to the experience. Like, it's one of those things like, you won't notice it if it's there, but you'll definitely notice if it's not. One of those sorts of things. Okay, we definitely will widen that a bit by 1 pixel. And 1 pixel to the right over here. As for this platform. That platform's fine. Yeah, that's true. I just can't be asked. Fair enough. You know, I mean, it's definitely not necessary for a truly functional product. Like, for the minimum viable products, this would not be needed, but for basically me now trying to polish things up, I definitely want it. Because I do think it adds to it. Atmosphere and all that. It's a little thing, but it adds to it. Makes it more convincing for the player. Alright, better go grab this lever. As the rattlesnakes wake up to say hello. See, hello rattlesnakes, how are you doing today? Hey, hiss. Well, goodbye to you too then. Alright, well, that means next area is gonna be down there. Alright, a quick test of that section. Alright, still not hearing metal. Good. Let's just carefully edge ourselves over here. Perfect. I agree we're walking in midair, but still. Well, I mean, not midair, but like, it looks like we're walking in midair. We're literally just, we have one pixel on the edge of the thing there. To the right, sounds good. Cool. Let's test the bottom edge right here, and then we'll be able to do our thing. Very, very good. All right, now for that section. Okay, so I think the next metallic portion. Could I program these little things here to make metal sounds? Yes, I could. Would I want to? No, I think that might be a bit overkill. It's like a really, really, really tiny thing. And it's kind of already in the ground anyway, so you might not hear the metallic sound. At least in my opinion. Whereas, where would be a spot that would have metal sounds? Oh yes, of course. There would the interesting thing about this half of the map, chat, is it feels like for the metal sound effects, it was very heavily tilted towards up in this room where it's like all metal platforms. But now as we're getting lower in the map, we're seeing various other areas for different types of sound effects. So the only other metal I can think of is in the shower room over here. And then we'll literally have the left side of the map programmed, at least with metal sound effects. We'll still have to add the wood sound effects, of course. And dirt when we have a sound effect for that, but that'll be a process unto itself. I think we just got metal over here. Yeah, lots of metal over here. Metal up there, metal over there. So that's probably like 4 spaces right there. Okie doke. Well, I will say this. One advantage of programming with regions like this, as opposed to tying it directly to objects for the sound effects, is that we can fit multiple regions in a single line of code like this, and at least with how Fusion 2.5 compiles things, something like this is way more efficient than actually compiling it by other means. Excuse me. Like, executing a line of code is like one of the least programming intensive things for Fusion 2.5 to do. Whereas having something tied to an object that requires calculations to be a bit more complicated. Where is... There it is. All right. Start with up here. It's to the left. Then I think it's about 9 or 10 upward. So 34. I won't overdo it on the right there. All right. Yeah. And I read this up a lot, chat, but you know, as I'm working on this tutorial dungeon, learning like how like some of the things take longer with situations like this, definitely makes me I'll definitely have a lot of best practices for future level design for the rest of the game that'll hopefully make things more efficient. Like how to, you know, how enemy configuration should be to be more efficient with programming pathfinding, for example, or things like this, where it's like you have long windy paths, those should be a bit more complicated to program sound effects for as opposed to just a bunch of simple rectangles. All good lessons to learn. Okay, so we'll go to 1402. Da, da, da. 1440 should be fine. This one up a bit. Okay. Yeah, indeed. For sure. Let's keep programming and keep it moving. So I'm thinking, Chaz, after I get this room all programmed with its metal sound effects, I think that's where I'll wrap things up. So probably gonna be another like 5 or 10 minutes of stream left. You know, it's about there, so we add 10 to that. Nope. I can't do it now. Eight, 1574. Yeah. All right, Copper Nicholson, we'll be wrapping up stream soon. I'm just trying to finish programming this last the mill in this shower room. Okay. Uno mas. If you're wondering why I'm doing it, it has half tiles. It's because the metal is kind of half of the sector up here, because there's some wood in these sections. I'll say for a second there, when you said Stan Copper Nicholson, I thought you meant Stan from South Park, not Stan from American Dad, but those are two very different characters. So it's there plus 6, so 1560. Thereabouts. That should do. All right, and now copy over the new lines of code to the line below for checking purposes. All right, chat, testing time. Let's take a look. Carefully move on over. I'll take us a little bit to go over there, but we'll get there. Especially with our very over-leveled weapons at this point. I've learned nothing. I've learned absolutely nothing. Whoops. That happens. Yes, get good, lol. Exactly. Yes, it's always get good. You have literally E-weapons that are strong enough to one-hit these things, and they don't move. That was definitely a get good moment. Just basically aim, Antomicx, aim. I know who, I know the character, I know about Patrick Stewart, Copper Nicholson, but who's Avery Bullock? Is that in American Dad? There we go. Much better. No. We will get through this rub. Okay, we're finally here. Is there an angle I can get on this thing? I also don't think there is. I think the way I programmed this room is that it just doesn't quite have the angles for that. On purpose, of course. But I might be able... Well, I can't hit the Cabraddle from here. At least I don't think. I should be able to hit the Cobra. The Cabraddle, I think, should be out of reach, so even if I try to line this up... Oh, no, I can! That's hilarious. I like that, actually. Look at that, chat. Jeez. I'm leaving that in. If players were smart enough to plan ahead enough to think that through, good on them. Like, good for them. Hooray for cheese. I'll need that. Oh, also, chat, this is a fun little thing I added during my off-stream development. I forgot to mention this. So now, every time we collect a key, it actually tells you what you got, because all the keys look the same. Try and range confidence and then happiness. Yes. But yeah, so now, chat, every time you picked up like any item in this game now, it's not just, oh, I collected it. Now it's like, hey, look, it tells me what this does and what it is. So in this case, we have the oil stained shower key, unlocks the upper hallway gate near the shower room in Heartwell, which is that gate right there. So I like this UI. I think it looks cool. I think it gets the point across very quickly while also being very non-intrusive. So there's a bit of the menus, but also the mere fact that at this moment, Repor, there's no menu to like keep track of all the keys you have or anything like that. So I figured, you know, probably better just to say, all right, this is what it does, right up front. So it's not just like in like Souls games where it's like you get a key and it's like, what is this key for? Why does this exist? As tends to be the case. Alright, take back to battle. Alright, I'll bait that, go for melee, try range combat, then happiness. Yes! Alright, now we can test this run. They do have some description, but usually it's confusing and cryptic. Yeah, whereas here though, like, unless there's a good reason to be confusing and cryptic, you know, sometimes it'll make sense to be more confusing and cryptic, but other times it's like, no, I should just say what this is for. You know, in this particular case, it's like saying it unlocks a certain key in like a door in a specific area of Heartwell. You at least have to understand the map enough to know where that is, but at least you'll have in your mind like, oh, this is probably for something that looks like in some sort of area like this. So saying it's like a shower room key, it's like, oh, well, there's clearly showers here, and it says an upper floor, it's probably that one. That sort of thing. All nice quality of life. Alright, but now we're testing sound effects. So, we got nice metal sound as we're walking on top of a metal sink / cabinet. Very good. Sounds good. Now let's head on up here. So this sounds metallic, as it should. This also sounds metallic. Hey, look at that, chat. So now we got this would be wood once it's programmed, but now you notice how like we're just barely off the edge of the metal and it sounds better like that. Granted, you know, there's obviously tiny bits of metal in those portions there, but I think it would be a lot cooler to have the sound wooden, just to really show players that, yes, I did go that extra mile to try and make things that look slightly different actually sound slightly different. Stuff like this. Okay, so this needs adjustment. Needs a lot of adjustment. I think we need to move it in about, I want to say, where's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll move that at about 5 pixels. Or actually, maybe more about 1, 2, 3, maybe about 3 pixels. Yeah, well, we almost got it. What about this one? Alright, well, it's almost perfect. Just at some minor adjustments, then we'll call it a night. Alright, let's test it out. Oh, I forgot those response. Whoops. That's alright. Although we have to stay in that room for particularly long. We'll just slowly make our way over here. Bop. Bop. Alright, chat. Let's test out the area up there. Alright, so far so good. Yeah, I still think it needs to be moved over just a smidge. Yeah, like maybe like 1 or 2 pixels more. Yeah. Okay. Alright. Also good to have our appreciation for how much goes into making games. Even the little things of making sure like a character's footsteps sound correct depending on material. You know, a lot of effort goes into the little things like that. Anyway. Good. Alright, I think we got it, chat. Look at that. Pretty cool. Might as well open that door for testing purposes since we're here. Give ourselves a little shortcut next time. Got that. Oh. Oh, that would... Slim. Also, can we appreciate that, like, that bridal snipe? Could you imagine, chat? Like, you come all the way up here, like, yes, I'm finally going to hit the shortcut, then suddenly denied. Like, you'd have to be standing in the exact wrong spot for it to happen, but I feel like it would be hilarious. Imagine, like, you're standing right here, it's like, yes, I finally made it. I mean, I guess technically, I don't think it has quite here yet. Guess I'll think about the Cobra encounter. Which one, Grabdor? Which Cobra encounter? Oh, the one where I just completely missed multiple times and the Prowl just messed us up. Yeah, I'll have it. Like, will it be possible to beat the Cabral's melee only without getting hit? I mean, anything's possible. But, I mean, obviously, facing different enemies, there's different, more optimal ways to face them. Yeah, I think the way the Cobras are currently balanced is they're very relentless up close. So definitely not ideal to be attacking with melee, but ranged there, it's obviously ideal to use ranged against Cobra, for example, because they don't have that much health. So it's like trying to teach the player, like, hey, this is a melee-focused enemy, you should probably keep your distance. Whereas for like some of the, well, like a very more so an aggressive melee-focused enemy, because like the rattlesnakes, you can basically use anything, it doesn't really matter. And Trabrattles, I'd say you're probably better off with ranged against Trabrattles, because you could, in theory, close the distance against a Crabrattle and go for some melee attacks, but the Trabrattles are also just good. I'll just say this: good luck actually dodging a Trabrattle's attack up close, like consistently. But anyway, I think that's that'll do for now. I think we did. So all in all, chat, you know, lots of zone programs. We did all this tonight. Lots of debugging, getting sound effects, which is basically means the metal's programmed on this left half of the map. There's still plenty of more metal to program, coupled with some other areas, especially like this room. This room's going to have so much metal to program. It's practically all metal. But definitely looking forward to making more progress with this. So I think I'll wrap things up here. If you're watching on Twitch, feel free to stick around for a raid. But if you're watching on YouTube and you like what you saw, please consider subscribing on YouTube. It's free to subscribe on YouTube. You can always change your mind later. That's a great way to show support. If you're watching on YouTube, I hope you have an amazing night.